Okay, welcome to the Baal Shem of Kolel here in Tzfach. And it's actually very exciting. Somebody suggested, very fine young man, Josh Honig, that let's try to start doing another podcast with my wife. I had some success with that, but in the meantime, he suggested speaking about Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. It's very appropriate to speak about Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Now, speaking about my wife, she's very in tune with the tzaddikim, with the sages, and many people can't say that I have that same level. Maybe the Rebbe, because I saw the Rebbe, experienced the Rebbe, I love the Rebbe. I remember when my grandfather would go to the previous Rebbe's tomb, we immediately start crying. But he had a relationship with the previous Rebbe. He had a connection with the Rebbe. So, but I guess, certainly a big tzaddik, and we see this by the Rebbe, they have a relationship with all these tzaddikim. They really get them. The Rebbe, there's a sefer put out by, what's his name? Rabbi Pesach, get her name. This fine Yid in South Africa. And basically went through, I think it was like 900 different, in the Gemara, you'll have a Baal and Rava, you'll have, obviously Shammai and Avtalia, and you have, Hillel and Shammai both. So these are and the Rebbe has something called the shiur side. Everything that they say is it's really a brilliant thing. It's a fundamental idea, concept, and this concept is the reason why they're saying it. Classic thing is that Shammai and Hillel represent Chesed and Gvura. In fact, it says, Baal Shem Tov says, Moshe Rabbeinu is Moshe, Shammai, and Hillel. And in fact, we say, Elu Divrei Kim Chayim, these and these are the words of the living God. Why? Because they are both true. When you look at something, sometimes in perspective, sometimes, let's say, you tell your son, no. So it's true. But that, no, you shouldn't be a spoiled kid. You shouldn't get away. Other times you say, yes, it's true. You should love him and be kind. They're both true. Why do you decide now yes, and why do you decide no? So it usually depends on your mood. One day you're more in a loving mood and you're seeing how much you should be giving love. Another day you might be more in a strict mood and you're saying, why should I spoil this kid? And it's so subtle. In fact, we talked about free choice before. Scientifically, they're saying that there's no free choice. And in fact, you can measure a human being. You can measure before he makes a choice. There are certain things that happen. You can measure the choice. So, for example, you have two options. They're like a subconscious motive. I don't know the whole thing, and I didn't go deep into the study, but what they say, the subconscious motive, maybe something lights up in the brain that wants you to choose that, and you choose that as opposed to that. So, now, like we said before, one thing is for sure in life is that we're all learning. Everybody's learning. I recently heard something very deep from the Rabbi Rashab, kind of reheard it by Rabbi Jacobson. A very important point in life. And it's the Rabbi Rashab said that effectively, that basically everyone's ego in life will break. But best if we ourselves break it. Look at Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu had to really break his ego. Now, it's very interesting because where does the Torah, what's the first thing that says, what's the first thing that God says to a Jew? Lech lecha. Go to yourself. And what Hashem says to him is, I will show you who you are, that you yourself don't even recognize who you are, because a human being is not capable of seeing their own potential. An amazing concept when you think about it. Somebody like Avraham Avinu is such a genius. At 3 years old, discovers the God just from science. He realizes there must be one force in charge of all forces. He goes against the whole world. Avraham Ivri. Why is it called Ivri? Because the whole world is on one side and he's on the other side. It's unbelievable. And yet, he couldn't know who he himself was. It's an amazing thing. I was speaking to her sister, she's very clever, Hashem, and she once said that, kind of sometimes very good people don't know who they are. Very tragic in life. You see, they're very sweet people. They might commit suicide. They don't understand who they themselves are. They're beautiful souls. So understanding that we are part of Hashem and we're infinite there's a tremendous leap because no human being, in fact, I met a guy here, actually from a sense, he had an amazing experience. Kind of, he saw a fire in the woods. He went towards the fire, and he had like a vision of three like palaces. One palace was like beautiful gold, like opulent, and the other was like sort of diamonds. It was like he said it was like a house of pleasure, and the third was technology, like every single technology that he could imagine. These are kind of the different desires that people have. People have this desire either for, be sophisticated, have a beautiful house, and this and that. We're speaking about some of these Arabs. Like, have a yacht with painted gold, and then you have, God forbid somebody goes into morality and foolish life like that. Or, in fact, the Rambam said, if you lived amongst the Arabs, like the foolish Arabs, that they're giving their whole life for women or things like that. And then a person can have technology, and technology today is one of the idols. Like, kids grow up, you see, we have a healthier relationship with technology. Why? Because we grew up before there was basically technology. So technology to us, the phone is a tool. That's a tool. I don't go onto Facebook. I use Facebook. Guy once had a dream, he told me, that ever told me to go onto Facebook. So I went onto Facebook. So what do? I post things. I use it for Torah. It's a good tool. Basically, what do I use this for? Communication. Once in a while, I need some information. And I send Torah. That's what I do. Baruch Hashem, I could make a donation to others. Some people can make a donation to me. Life is good. But I'm not. You see kids today, beautiful kids, but this has become their reality. In fact, I have a cousin who's very smart. He actually made Chabad.org. His father and him made Chabad.org. He was the kind of the engineer of it. At 13, he works in AI. He said, if you want to know if a child is addicted or not to a phone, just take it away from them. It's like, I've seen it before. Take away technology from them. They're literally like an addict, like an addiction. And kids today, they call it their third arm. Like they have to be sleeping. It's like their whole life, So I don't know what this guy, what was his name that made Apple? Steve Jobs. He's like good marketer. Figured out how to really addict people to a product. Unbelievable. In fact, the business professor told me the phone is an amazing product. Unfortunately, now he's a little bit poor. And he's like, listen, I spend every single month, I don't know what he spent, $40 for this little machine. $40 every month I'm going to pay for this machine. Right? And even myself, I pay at least $40 for this, for the internet in the home. So it's an amazing, amazing thing. Now, be that as it may, technology is not a bad thing. It depends what you use it for. But it's important to put technology in its place. Technology is no different to a hammer, no different to a pill, no different to a car. It's just a tool and it has a function. And this lady, a very special woman, psychologist that I speak to. So she quoted a guy, technology is a convenience. And I use it if it's convenient. It's a tremendous lie. Because if technology becomes your entertainment system, your self-worth, a person's finished. Because, and much to their, I don't know all the details, but it seems like companies like Facebook, other companies, they had very brilliant people figuring out how to addict people. And people got addicted to it. And for them, it's worth billions of dollars because whoever gets the eyeballs gets the advertisements. Literally billions. You got any website you have 1 billion viewers, you're now worth probably $1 billion. Simple. Now look at Twitter. Twitter sold. Twitter is nothing. Nothing. It's just a place where people make one-line sentences. Sold for $40 billion. It's unbelievable, right? So we're talking about, companies, massive car companies, they can't be worth $40 billion. And this is something that doesn't even exist. It's a page that people post one line, sold for $40 billion. So this shows us that people are, one of the greatest of the doctors and psychiatrists in addiction was Rabbi Dr. Tversky, who wrote 80 books. In fact, he said every one of his books say the same thing. Have good self-esteem. If I want to give people good self-esteem, you're a creation of God. If God doesn't love you, wouldn't exist. You're part of his story, an infinite story. You just have to figure out your part and not worry about anyone else. You have to worry about anyone else to the extent that you can play a positive role, but not worry in terms of shame, because that's the other thing that keeps people down. So, to make a long story short, technology is a beautiful thing if you are using it. If it's an idol to you, if you are subservient to technology, then you've got a big problem. Now, getting back to the original point, what was the original point? Oh, Shem. So this is very important. Why? Because basically there are people that like the Rebbe says, there are certain people that tell you information. Then there are other people that tell you information that you already knew. To tell you information, you can have a great rabbi, somebody very smart, or even I say reveal something, but it's like a new revelation, new concept. But to tell you your own soul, something that you already know, this is very deep because it's exposing the inner truth of what always existed. And so there are very unique souls that come into this world that, and really, I believe this, and a friend of mine, psychiatrist, confirmed it. Basically, the thing, you think about what changed the world. Think about that for a moment. What would you say were the things that changed the world? Right? So people would say the wheel changed the world, right? Other people say containers changed the world. You have shipping, technology changed the world. But none of that really changed. Huh? A piece of wire. That's for sure. A piece of wire. That's a big change in the world. That's true. That one I'll go with. Piece of wire, copper, electricity certainly was a big change in the world. But really, none of that is the real change in the world. The real change in the world were advancements in human ideas. So the people that really changed the world, first of all, are Avraham Avinu, because the way people thought about life, and obviously the way we think about life, changes how we behave in life. So one of the massive problems, and it happens every single time, is prosperity, and then people become addicted to their predilections. And as Rabbi Kristen said, people are born basically addicts. They have these desires that they're trying to fulfill. In fact, Freud speaks about it. The difference between the pleasure thinking, which is and reality thinking. A person can want, I don't know, a nice car, but unless he's going to go to work and he's going to get the money to buy it, he ain't going to get the car. So people that are in this, what happens to people that grow up in safe societies, which we're seeing in the West, is they get into fantasy thinking, right? Right now, there are these crazy black movements, which are called reparations. It's like fantasy, because in 1 second, in order, from what they desire, they won't live beyond 1 year. Because if you bankrupt a country, then you don't have the next year. But they don't think about that. All they're thinking about the money. It's like an addict, the money. They're just saying money, 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 money. That's all they care about. So we have to realize that in the real world, the right ideas lead to the right result. And the wrong ideas lead literally to self-destruction. And we've seen this in human history. We've said this many times. The history shows that empires, they get to this place. The religious ideas, the ideas of, kind of right and wrong and moral structure, these are the ideas that build a society. Because without religious ideas, all you have is basically chaos. You have what they call in game theory, us versus them mentality, a zero-sum game. And so somebody can become like in China, I mentioned this, 2,000 years ago, 300 million people were murdered because they have these little fiefdoms, and certain countries have, they need a dictator. These countries, they have to have a dictator, because if they didn't have a dictator, it's a big mistake of the West to go into certain countries, try to create democracy. Right? They tried it in Iraq, created chaos. Obama, quote unquote, tried it in Syria, chaos. Because these are not people like the Arab saying that I against my father, my brother and I against my father, my father and I against my cousin. They see the whole world as a fight, and in a way, it could just very well be that it is a fight in their society. I met this guy, head of a gang in the prison, and he goes, "We didn't grow up like you, it was like eat or be eaten." And so basically it boils down to the idea that if the idea is right, the result of the idea is right. So who actually came up with good ideas? Good ideas that show after thousands of years can be proven that these ideas have good results, right? So first of all, we have Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu's idea is that there's a God. It's actually a very radical idea. The reason it's a radical idea, because until then, and even people that believe in science in a way, atheistic people, they actually have a very similar idea to a pagan idea, which is that there are these different forces that control the universe. And so ultimately, all you have to do is bow to the force. The people that are bowing to technology, they think that technology is going to save them, but it's just as likely to destroy them. So it's the question that, like Einstein said, that it's not a question of the technology, it's a question of the morality of the human being, right? An atom bomb can be used for very wonderful things. It could create energy, but if a person's crazy, it could destroy it. So it's a question of the hearts of people. So that's where the Torah comes in. It's coming to tell us the difference between right and wrong, good and evil. So what is good? Good is the idea of Avraham Avinu. And obviously, the Torah made that the next level. And the Torah is not only for the Jews. There are many, the whole world needs to know that there's a God, and God holds you accountable. You have, and there's a world after, and what you're going to do, there's reward and punishment. So you have a structure by which you can be good. And that's a very, very, very critical thing. We see all societies that are based on God, and no society is perfect, but it's 1,000 times better than a society that doesn't have God. We see it in everything it now. We're going into basically murder. It's insane what's going on. That's number one. Also, the idea of women not having enough children, God forbid, societies, entire civilizations are going to be lost. There's a book called How Civilization Dies. Very smart guy. It's actually a frum guy. And he says, and the subtitle is Including Islam. And it basically shows there that every single country that kind of gets the pill so women can have less children, even in Iran today, which is a religious country, the women stop having the children, and then they don't produce enough to continue this. So all these people that are clamoring about their crazy ideas, there's nobody going to be like, certainly people that aren't having intimacy and going against it. Well, their whole society is going to die because they're not creating people. So it's like the whole thing is just like it. But again, what is driving them? Their desire. Because their desire, whether it's for acceptance or whatever it is, they're not thinking about long term. A smart person sees a long term effect. Because anything that's true has to be perpetual. Truth and perpetuity is the same thing. And so something that's going to die out, doesn't matter how smart the person thinks they are, they're really stupid because that is actually, they're heading to their own destruction. So the summary of all summaries is Rabbi Shem Bar Yochai takes the Torah, Yiddishkeit takes life to another dimension. So till the times where we have Moshe Rabbeinu, basically the great people that change life is Avraham Avinu. It says there's a God and right and wrong. Then you have Moshe Rabbeinu, because really Hashem, and Moshe Rabbeinu gives us the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu gives us the system, the actual system of life. And then in a certain sense, you have the Jewish people, because the Jewish people become the living Torah. Hashem, we don't think about this often, but Jewish people are a light unto the nation. How? Because people really learn, as I said, modeling is not another type of teaching, it's the only type of teaching. People only learn from their models. So the Jewish people were basically cooked in Eretz Yisrael, and they themselves, it took them centuries to really understand Torah is real, right? By the destruction of the first temple, they were on the 3 cardinal sins, they were going against the Torah. Second temple was already sinus finum, that's something we have to rectify in Lag Baimer, baseless love. But the second, interesting, I think there, as I'm saying, it came to me, it was very interesting. Baseless love is very simple. Why don't people have baseless love? If you think about it, a child loves unconditionally. A child doesn't. I remember there was this book, a very beautiful book by Dina, her name, Herman Rosenfeld. In her book, it's about this child. She was like talking about loving and like loving like a child, like a baby. The baby doesn't see it's a person handicapped, it's a person black, it's a person just seeing a person is happy to see a person. There's no judgment by a child. So we're born in a way just to love. In fact, Einstein says that prejudice is all the stupid things you heard until you were 18. And a person hears something bad about a group or this and then he takes it internally and that becomes his reality. So in a way, America, at least the way America used to be, was a very beautiful thing because the idea of everybody should be respected. And that's why the people that call themselves liberals today are not liberals, they're terrorists. Because a real liberal is somebody that accepts everybody, not somebody that rejects people. They're exactly opposite to liberals, and that's why they're getting along with the terrorists, because it's a megalomaniac kind of entity, because there can be black radicals, just like there's white supremacists, there can be black supremacists, and these are radicals that are not about, and that Obama being the kind of poster child for these things, was not about love, it was not about unity, it was not about bringing people together. It was about saying, we're great, they're evil. That's basically their whole philosophy, and they have 10,000 different categories of who's evil. And the whole thing is insane. But the point is that God himself created everybody's part of God's community. So in the true reality, we're all special. But that is unconditional love, where I don't look at anyone. In fact, the Baal Shem Tov loved even trees, even plants, even animals. If you're a healthy human being, you love. Love is a natural thing. So this is the thought that occurred to me. Why is there baseless hate? Very interesting psychology. The real reason, one of the real reasons, is because subconsciously, it's that psychologists say that everybody's been bullied. So now we know that desire goes in two directions, what I want and what I don't want. So sometimes what I'm doing, so for example, a person, let's say, goes to work, right? They can go to work because they want to, I don't know, they like the job. But usually we go to work because of what I don't want. I don't want to not have money or something, or I don't want my wife to shout at me, or something like that. So what I want, what I don't want. So often in life, a person behaves in a certain way, not because they want to behave in that way, but they don't want a certain consequence to occur, so they behave in a certain way. That's why people pay taxes. So the story is that what we don't want, we don't want to be shamed. And therefore, subconsciously, we realize that somebody shamed us, and if we behave like they behave, they won't shame us. That's kind of the premise in the subconscious. The problem is it's not true. Why? There's a Jew, and think about the Jews, till this very day, try to do so many things. The Germans were more German than the Jews were. Than the Germans were. The Jewish Germans were more German than the Germans were. They fought in the fatherland reforms. Look at the reform statements. They speak about they wanted to get rid of the whole idea of Israel. It's all about the fatherland. Stupid thing. But the thing is, to them, what was it all about? They didn't want to not be accepted by society. Right? So, in other words, I think it was the time of time, one of these guys, they converted first to Catholics. It was all about getting into the club. Society really separated the Jews. And the thing is that there's nothing a Jew can do to prevent anti-Semitism. Why? Because anti-Semitism is the disease of the hater. Where does it come from? It comes from jealousy. There was a German Jew who wrote a book, an encyclopedia of Judaism, of Jews, Jewish. He said, why is there anti-Semitism? Anti-Semitism because they don't understand it. They understood, right? No, it's not anti-Semitism because they don't understand. They're anti-Semitism because he is miserable. When I asked for it, I think I mentioned this before. I used to think it's a joke, but then I realized it's very, very accurate. I asked Freud for the psychology of anti-Semitism. He said, miserable bastard. And I used to think it was like a joke, but it really is the truth. When a person is miserable, they become basically a jerk. And that's just the way it is. When a person's miserable, I thought of my own life. When I was miserable, there was this sense of jealousy that overcame me. Baruch Hashem, no, I'm not miserable, so you live and I'll live. We'll both be happy. It's just that simple. But the story is, so in a certain sense, what does it boil down to? It boils down to, and there's a lot of what Kabbalah teaches us, is be happy. Why? Because if you're happy, then you'll be nice. Very simple. Don't allow anyone under your skin. They don't belong there. And make sure that you're doing things that make you happy. And very, very important, because happy people are nicer people. Now, it's true, it's interesting that you can be too happy in life. This kind of a thought that I had today, which, I've thought before, but basically every true is evil. Too happy, too sad, too indulgent, too fast. Everything has to have its proportionality. But generally speaking, being happy is the way to go. And that's the whole idea of physics, happiness. And that's why we have to be so into Moshiach. We never said he's so into Moshiach, because Moshiach is literally happiness. When you believe Moshiach is about to come, and especially today, it's very critical to have Moshiach, because a lot of people are lacking hope in the future. And the truth is, if you know that Moshiach is going to come, there's a lot of hope for the future. So, when we're talking about people that kind of change the world, it's really ideas that change the world. And to be fair, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's ideas didn't really penetrate the world until the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov, he came along. I mean, obviously we have the Arizal that says time to be revealed. So there's all stages, and we're literally right here. Actually, a tradition of the Baal Shem Tov's grave came to the Arizal. I don't know if you've ever heard that. And we're right here. And so the story of life boils down to the idea, basically in a way, the ideas of the Baal Shem Tov. Because the Baal Shem Tov, my little book of love, I speak a lot about it. But the Baal Shem Tov's ideas create everything that we need to know is there. And in a way, Chabad took the Baal Shem Tov's ideas even more practical. Because many people have like a peripheral knowledge of Baal Shem Tov about love and happiness, which is true, but they don't. The Baal Shem Tov was very, very, very great. His ideas were supremely amazing, which, if I may say, have a little credibility, because I translated the three main works. And certainly the Maggid, I think people that also don't know much about him, but also incredibly deep ideas. Just look at the Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov. Talmidim of the Maggid are holiest souls of the world. So obviously they were great. And, you can tell somebody's great by who follows them. Rabbi Evan Yisrael, he met the Rebbe. He said he felt like he was like a mouse in front of a giant. Because it's only the greatest minds that actually understand how great this mind is. The tzaddikim, the Baba Sali, that understand the greatness, they were the ones that could fully appreciate. I remember hearing from Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu that in every field the Rebbe was like towering above. So we don't even begin to appreciate how great. Then certainly when you come to the Rebbe, it's an amazing thing, because the Rebbe, I remember saying to a friend of mine, it was a story that Samuel Tzedek once said that I don't remember the details, but the Rashbi took all the information till then and went higher. And Arizal and Baal Shem Tov and Alter Rebbe, and it was quiet. And the Hillel Parasha was in the room, and he says, and Samuel Tzedek also. So we don't even realize the greatness of Samuel Tzedek, that Rabbi Shavi's great tzaddikim. So I asked my friend, very, very great Rosh Hashiva, great scholar. So he said, what about the Rebbe? What did the Rebbe? Because everyone's taking it higher. The Rebbe, and he said something which I believe is true. The Rebbe was Atzmos, the whole story. And you see this very clearly, because in Atzmos, you have the whole story. You have every single part. It's like almost somebody that comes up with math. You start, 1 + 1 = 2. You get da-da-da. But then you get to the point where math and art, that's basically what an algorithm is. Like von Neumann, Jewish guy that created the computer, created an algorithm. Here it's like, because you always see this in the way things develop. Like you'll start off with a car, so Model T Ford, like this ugly little machine. But eventually what happens is the art and the functionality and everything starts to blend, because now you know how to make a car. So now you're thinking, okay, what's the best kind of car I can make? It's the whole story. It's not only like one part of the story, it's the whole story together. And ultimately, like, what will be the ultimate car? It actually will boil down to what's the most functional. That's going to be, what's going to be the safest, what's going to be the most functionality. There were fancy wheels and this and that. Maybe it's not so safe. So with time, you get away from just the structure, and you start to make it beautiful. And then you get into the final. Even with food today, right? People got into sugar and that. But now we're like, okay, give me what's tasty and healthy. What's the most functional thing here? And so that's where the Rebbe, we see the Rebbe, infinite functionality, and obviously the way of Hashem, the idea that Hashem is given us all a role. We obviously have Torah mitzvahs, and also we have personal relationships with Hashem. We have infinite growth, but the whole thing is very, very integrated. Right? The Rebbe speaks a lot. I think I mentioned it. I have a friend that is a graphologist, so the Alter Rebbe's handwriting, you look at the Alter Rebbe's handwriting, very high Rotzi V'Shul, like tremendous desire for Hashem, tremendous need. We got to do our mission on this world. But by the Rebbe, because above the line is spirituality, below the line is groundedness, by the Rebbe was almost like 0.5 in both directions, almost computer perfect. The Rebbe was like, everything was integrated. When Menachem Begin came to the Rebbe, so he, I think they asked him, what did you think? He says, he knows Israel better than me, which is a big statement. And Menachem Begin knew Israel. And he says, he believes in God like a savta. Believes in God like a grandmother, like a, Moroccan grandmother. There's no connection. I love them. I live in Moshiach Alley. That when you see these like grandmothers from Yemen, they're like this, like they know just Hashem. No question. They're such pure, amazing, beautiful faith. And so the Rebbe had all of it. He just had it all. He had the greatest in logic and science and everything. The Rebbe was just, but ultimately, the Rebbe was Malchus. Malchus received, and we are the generation. The Rebbe says we are the generation of Malchus because we're the seventh generation. And so that's our mission, which is to basically take all this information. We have information like never before, and to live this information. And so we have to live meaningful, beautiful lives, happy lives, knowing Moshiach is about to come. And we should have a little bit of Rabbi Shem Bar Yochai. It says that we're going to go out of Golus with the book of the Zohar. As I've said many times, that with the explanation, it says even the kids will know secrets of the Torah, which we have today. Kids are very high frequency, that we call it. They're very in tune. And it's very like, you see these little kids in Tzfat, they're like already little tzaddikim. And the kids of today are tzaddikim. They have to bring more Torah to them. And this comes all through the explanations of Chabad. Chabad Chassidus took, so it's really the concept of Baal Shem Tov, which is really the concept of Kabbalah, and even deeper, which on the day of Lag BaOmer, which is the revelation of the neshama of Torah, which is Chassidus. So now we have, especially through whatever we have the complete package. So today, all you need to do is you just got to open up the product and live it. We've been given the gift of everything. We just have to live it, take the ideas of Chassidus, implement it in our lives. L'chaim v'levracha.